Eckersley Colliery. Nice little pit. Known to the inmates as Eckers-like. Output's up. Climbing all the time. Labour relations are good. Well, mostly good. Well, as good as most. The outlook would be rosy if somebody down there didn't seem to have it in for the pit. According to the area director, Eckersley is the hottest property around. The manager has to agree with him, although he'd be reluctant to admit it. The manager's a busy man. Fire incidents take up a lot of his time. The manager would probably call it an accident. That's not what the fire officer would call it. There was a rather more serious incident last November. It was a cold, drizzly day, and the heating wasn't up to scratch as they'd had a fire in the boiler room the week before. Alice Ogden, who works in the offices, had her hair spoilt waiting for the bus. So, naturally enough, when she got in, she started putting it to rights.
Oh, God, it's nippy in here. They're only up to half strength. Where's that bloody fire?
Mr. Bershaw said you're not to use that fire. It's dangerous.
Silly old fool. What does he know about it? This yours? I thought you were slimming.
I am. My fingers are ever so slim. Oh, look.
Daft pikelet.
Don't you know Mr. Bershaw's forbidden us to use that fire? Anyway, what about the kettle?
Oh, what about it? No problem.
When you're finished, the manager wants those reports typed out.
Oh, somebody's in a mood today.
Have you got those papers out of the files yet? I need them for the manager's meeting this afternoon.
I told those girls to get it out on Friday. Hang on, if you've got a moment, I'll get it out myself. Let's say if you want a job done. I don't know. You could be different in March. I can tell you when I was in charge of this way. Ah, God, this place wants some sorting out. Still, I think I can find the stuff you want. Hold on.
What is that bloody for? That's stuff
Do you blame me? You blame me?
I'm moving into your office, Look out, here comes Gaffer. Excuse me.
Mr. Bershaw, it just happened with
Well, don't just stand there, everybody. Somebody do something. Go on, fetch the firefighting team. Get the fire brigade. Well, go on. What's that horrible smell?
Air lacquer.
Air lacquer. Who opened that window?
I did. The room was full of smoke.
Most of your other brilliant ideas, I don't suppose it occurred to you to use the firefighting appliance.
It did, but you'll admit it was difficult to know what to use under the circumstances.
How you can get a fire going to this state when you're all supposed to be doing jobs that I mean, what's she doing with hair lacquer? She could start a fire in here that
right from the beginning.
would burn out the whole
That's
building.
stupid,
Look,
John.
I've just been into that records office.
do me
and
hair,
it's
we're
in the
all
most
right.
careful.
You should do your bloody
It's
hair.
not
on,
my
sir.
fault.
Doing the toilet.
Darling,
Look, you should come
was it?
10 minutes early.
Look, don't blame us.
I missed the bus.
You
I
work
told you
starts
time and
at
time
9
again. I know you
o'clock.
are, but I've told her not to put her hair in
Don't
curly.
you?
Well, Eckersley survived to firefight another day. Chances are you're more likely to get a fire in a workshop than an office. By its very nature, a workshop's a higher risk. Take this one. No smoking. That's a laugh. Clutter, paints and thinners side by side, rubbish on the floor, all the ingredients for a fire. Smoking is the commonest cause of surface fires. You won't prevent it by plastering notices all over the shop. A lighted fag end, an untidy shop, that's a burning combination at Eckersley. If you provide a place where men may smoke safely, then you can begin to enforce the no-smoking rule. But always do your housekeeping. That's the secret of fire prevention. Not that it's really a secret. It's been preached, pushed, pleaded at Eckersley, heaven alone knows, let alone the area's safety engineer. Good housekeeping will cut fire risks if it's done regularly. Most people at Eckersley regard fires as a fact of life. The firefighting team knows otherwise. Fires are preventable.
Ken! Harry! Come on!
Firefighting team's very efficient.
Leave all that tackle. Come
It should
on,
be.
over here.
It's had plenty of practice.
The joiner's shop's on fire. Can't you see it?
If there are fewer fires on the surface than underground, it's no reason for complacency. Once a surface fire spreads, it can put people underground in danger. It can foul ventilation, cripple electric power, and destroy water supplies. Fires are preventable. But even the fire officer sometimes has his doubts, looking at the mass of charred evidence that comes his way. And when he looks at equipment in the pit, he knows he's in a minority of one as far as fire prevention goes. Some elementary facts about fire might change a few minds, if anyone at Eckersley is watching. Heat alone won't start a fire. Air and something that will burn in it are the other essentials. Once a fire's started, it'll supply enough heat to raise surrounding materials to the temperature where they themselves will start to burn, so the fire will spread. The lowest temperature at which a material will start to burn is known as its ignition point. Heat from an outside source is needed to bring it to this point. Friction from a seized roller can be quite enough. Oils and other flammable liquids combine easily with the oxygen in the air to form an ignitable mixture. At a certain temperature, oxidation will proceed so rapidly that sufficient heat will be generated to bring the mixture to its ignition point. Give spilled oil a chance to soak into finely divided material like coal dust and sawdust and rags, and the fire risk will never be far away. Eckersley hasn't got a monopoly of fire risks. They're present in every pit. For a start, coal is combustible, obviously. Coal dust, even more so. Many of the materials needed in the pit are also combustible. There's no doubt about this material being a fire risk. Once installed in the pit, every machine is a potential risk. Fires can be caused by faults or neglect and poor maintenance. And if a fire breaks out, the ventilation system will spread the blaze. So look out for faults. Report those you can't handle and clean up as often as you can. Maintain equipment. Make regular inspections. Management must see that machinery is properly sited. Oil-filled switchgear and transformers need a free passage of air to disperse the heat they generate. Management must also make sure that it's easy to get at machinery that needs regular maintenance. Talking of maintenance, most underground fires are on conveyors. They're nearly always started by frictional heating. Especially true of Eckersley, where they've still got closed conveyors. Where dirt accumulates and where faulty rollers seize up, the friction frequently starts a fire. Conveyor fires appear with monotonous regularity in the Eckersley casebook. How about this one? It occurred on Nine's Loadergate conveyor last summer. Jack Newby, the gearhead attendant, had cleared up as usual and was taking a breather in the roadway when Percy Briers, a haulage hand, came out by. Briers had had a real grueler. He was ready for his tea. It was about home time, wasn't it? Bloody hell, it was time he was going. Anyhow, he reckoned he'd smelt something burning as he was coming up. They'd better get back, said Newby. Not Briers. At least he could let them know, Newby shouted. But Briers wasn't bothered. Newby wasted no more time on him. He'd more important things to do, like finding a fire. About 40 yards in by, smoke was everywhere. The smell of burning was unmistakable. The smoke was coming from the conveyor. A faulty roller had seized up, jammed by the dirt accumulated over several shifts. Newby did what he could under the circumstances, but it were like spitting in a high wind. At least it was a start. Now he'd have to follow it up. His next step was to raise the alarm. He couldn't rely on Briers. At the fire point, he rang the deputy on the district. His warning came just in time to stop the men at the face end. They didn't appreciate being sent out along the return, but they'd no alternative with the fire in the gate. Something stronger was needed to tackle the fire. The foam extinguisher was a sensible choice, but the fire was too deeply entrenched for the extinguisher to be effective. The answer was a hose. Newby had had some previous experience of fires, as who at Eckersley hadn't. But he was working on his own, and running out the hose and connecting it to the hydrant took precious time. Still, he kept his head, and that made up for any lack of expertise on his part. Once the pressure built up and the water got going, it was only a matter of minutes before the fire was extinguished. Newby's prompt action saved the situation. Throughout, he'd shown a sense of responsibility rare at Eckersley. Of course, the fire would never have started if others had been as responsible in the first place. There'd have been no dirt to gum up the roller and no faulty roller. Talking of responsibility, what about Briars? He sat down to his tea with a clear conscience, even if he grumbled a bit. His troubles began the next day. There are many electrical fires underground. To prevent them, frequent checks are needed on switchgear and other electrical apparatus. Damage and overheating are the best way to start a fire. There aren't many local fires, but if they happen, they're nasty. Firefighting points are recommended every 500 yards on local roadways. Routine overhaul reduces fire risks. Check water level. Top up frequently. Check fuel lines for leaks. Clean up spillage, if you can't avoid it. And don't leave the rag behind. Housekeeping again. Rags and oil bring to mind another incident. The midshift manset arrived on time at Nine's Inby station. Punctuality is one of the few virtues practiced at Eckersley. Newby and Briars were on it. Briars, as ever, was in no hurry to get to work. As it happened, it was a good job he delayed the others.
Come on, let's have it down. Good hell, come on.
Come on, Brian, you daft bugger. Give us a hand. Get this fire out.
Newby acted with his usual initiative and helped save the day. But how had the rag got on the track? It had probably been trapped under the engine cowling and then been blown out by the fan. Briars thought otherwise. There were darker forces at work. Anyway, left to him, the pit could have been burnt down. Prevention's better than cure, but if a fire does start, you must know how to stop it. Learn how to use your firefighting equipment. There are two ways of putting out fires. One's by cooling, the other by smothering. Cooling's done with water. You need it on fires of freely burning materials like wood, paper and coal. Water cools down burning material and the surrounding areas to a temperature at which they can no longer continue to burn. Smothering fires starves them of oxygen. Smothering is the most effective way to deal with oil and electrical fires. Foam is used to smother oil fires. It acts like a blanket to exclude air. Dry powder is used to smother electrical fires underground. It starves them of oxygen. CO2 is more commonly used on surface electrical fires. Water should never be used as it conducts electricity. Enough said. All firefighting equipment should be readily available. On the surface, it should be grouped near doorways. Underground, fire points should be chosen for accessibility, escape routes, and areas of high fire risk. They should be clearly marked and clearly lit. There are also fire detection devices. The Minerva smoke detector protects transfer points, run-of-mine conveyors, return airways, and other high-risk areas. Gases from a fire reaching the Minerva trigger off an alarm signal. The Minerva also protects surface machinery such as friction winding motors. The alarm sets off a fixed CO2 installation. There's more than one kind of firefighting device. More than one kind of installation. All this equipment needs regular attention. But at Eckersley, only one man seems to give it, and that's the fire officer. With the whole pit to cover, it's inevitable that he should sometimes make a mistake. This was only one of the things that went wrong when fire broke out in the 7th District Return during salvage work. Most of the hose had been removed from the area because in the manager's estimation it was no longer required. Also, someone had gone in for salvaging on his own account. Another hose was eventually found, but 2 days earlier, a tub had come off the rails and smashed against the hydrant. No one had seen fit to report the matter. Fortunately, the salvage men were able to keep the fire at bay with stone dust till the colliery fire team arrived. Fortunately. At Eckersley, they're still dealing with the same old fires. Carbon copies of the ones they had 20 years ago. You'd think they'd learn from experience, but no. Next week's conveyor fire seems to be well on the way. It could be the last one, for you, or you, or you.